Number 8. Confession written in blood. On September 22, 2023, 31-year-old John Wonder allegedly attacked his wife, 29-year-old Ashley Earhart, with a meat cleaver before choking her to death. The victim, a longtime resident of Kansas City, was found partially naked with a belt coiled tightly around her neck. The killer had also stabbed her multiple times, and instead of hiding his weapons, he left them lying right next to her body. In another display of recklessness, he even wrote his name on her leg in blood. The couple got married in 2019, but in 2021, Ashley decided to get a divorce. Her eventual killer was supposed to move out on October 1st, 2022, but he was likely plotting his revenge the entire time. At 8:20 a.m. on the day of the incident, the killer abandoned his 2 children outside the home of Ashley's parents. 2 hours later, they received a call from the police telling them what had happened. According to reports, the victim's mangled body was discovered by her own father when he ventured into the basement. The killer clearly showed no remorse and, in fact, took pleasure in his act of violence. At 8:40 a.m., he sent his sister a text message mentioning how easy it was to satisfy his bloodlust. John was apprehended the same day near Valentine, Nebraska, and he faces charges of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. He is currently being held on a $1 million bond as he awaits trial. Number 7. Dahmer fan dismembers her victim. On February 23, 2022, 25-year-old Taylor Shivers strangled her boyfriend, 24-year-old Shad Therion, before mutilating his corpse and cutting off his head. Analysis of her search history later revealed that she was a fan of Jeffrey Dahmer, who may have inspired the viciousness of her actions. Authorities have confirmed that both Taylor and Shad were consuming methamphetamine on the day of the incident, which likely led to the killer losing control and unleashing her violent impulses. To make things worse, the evidence seems to suggest that the couple were getting intimate at the time. During the sexual encounter, the killer began choking the victim so hard that he started coughing up blood, and once he was dead, she continued performing sexual acts on the corpse. The incident occurred at the victim's mother's home, and when she finally returned, nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to discover. She found a bucket covered with a green towel, and when she looked inside, she found her son's severed head. When the police were called, they searched the premises and found even more signs of Taylor's brutality. Apart from decapitating her victim, she also chopped off his torso, ripped out his organs, and even cut off his genitals. Taylor was arrested later that day in a minivan, and she was charged with first-degree homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. Despite her attempts to plead insanity, she was convicted in July 2022, and on September 26th, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Number 6. Adult film star turned femme fatale. On July 4th, 2020, 24-year-old Lauren Wambles helped her boyfriend William Parker and another accomplice Jeremy Peters shoot 51-year-old Raoul Gillen in the back of the head before hastily burying him in a shallow grave. Notably, both her accomplices were considerably older than her, with Parker being 35 and Peters 43 years old at the time. It also bears mentioning that Wambles was a well-known adult film star between 2015 and 2018, starring in at least 30 productions under the name Aubrey Gold. The victim was last seen with his eventual killers in his Dothan, Alabama home. His family reported him missing, and on August 25th, police cadaver dogs uncovered his corpse near a road just outside Graceville, Florida. According to his daughter, the victim had called his ex-wife to tell her that he owed money to dangerous people and that he needed help fast. It's possible that he had taken either money or narcotics from one of his killers, and they ended his life when he could not pay up. The execution-style killing certainly lines up with this narrative, and later testimony alleged that the gunshot, while it left him withering in pain, was not enough to kill him. Parker then stuffed dirt into the victim's nose and mouth to suffocate him, and finally ended his misery. 2 days after Gillen's body was found, police arrested all 3 conspirators. Wambles pleaded guilty to 1 count of accessory to murder and agreed to testify against Parker and Peters in exchange for leniency. Just 2 months prior to the incident, she had filed a police report claiming her boyfriend had assaulted her, so she did not hesitate before agreeing. On October 6, 2021, Wambles was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Her testimony led to Parker receiving a life sentence for second-degree murder, along with a 5-year sentence for tampering with evidence. As for Peters, he was sentenced to 20 years for being an accessory after the fact. Number 5. Year-long reign of terror. On August 16, 2015, 22-year-old Aaron Saucedo shot 61-year-old Raul Romero to death, beginning an 11-month-long killing spree that claimed the lives of 8 other victims. It all began 4 days prior to the killing, when the quiet East Coulter Street in Phoenix, Arizona, came alive with the sound of gunshots. While no one was injured in this incident, it gave Saucedo the confidence he needed to unleash an unbelievable wave of violence. The killer stayed quiet for the rest of 2015, but just 45 minutes into the new year, he gunned down his second victim, 22-year-old Jesse Olivas. Things escalated in March 2016, when he shot a minor on the 17th of the month, followed by attacking another man the very next day. Though both these victims survived, most of his other targets were not so lucky. By April, Saucedo's bloodlust had reached a fever pitch. On April 1st, 21-year-old Diego Verdugo Sanchez became the killer's second fatality. Shortly after, 55-year-old Krista Annette White's body was found, with a gaping gunshot wound. With 3 victims to his name, Saucedo had officially become a serial killer. Over the next few months, he prowled the streets of Phoenix looking for easy targets. It was not until June 21st that authorities made the connection between 5 of his victims, since Saucedo targeted largely Hispanic neighborhoods. Shockingly, this did not deter the killer from continuing his spree. On July 11th, he unleashed a hail of bullets on a car with a child inside, though the child thankfully escaped unharmed. On May 8, 2017, Saucedo was arrested and charged with numerous crimes, including first-degree homicide. His trial, initially scheduled to begin in 2019, was pushed back 3 times due to the enormous scope of his crimes. As of December 2022, Saucedo was still awaiting trial, but prosecutors are determined to put him on death row. Do you think this serial killer deserves the death penalty? Let us know in the comments and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 4. Bad Egg. On May 23, 2014, 22-year-old Elliot Roger began a shooting spree that left 6 people dead and 14 injured in a matter of hours. The killer enjoyed a privileged childhood, with his father, noted film director Peter Roger, giving him anything he could have asked for. This clearly led to a sense of entitlement, since the culprit eventually started describing himself as an ISIL, suggesting that he held extremely misogynistic views. As the sun set on Isla Vista, California on May 23rd, Elliot apparently snapped. He began his spree by slaughtering 3 men who were in his apartment at the time: Wei Han Wang, Chen Hong, and George Chen. By the time he had reached his final victim, the killer was in such a frenzy that he stabbed him 94 times. This much violence should have exhausted the culprit, but he had clearly gotten a taste of blood. At 9:18 p.m., he uploaded his last video to YouTube titled Retribution, in which he insulted women for rejecting him and explicitly stated that they should be punished. He also raged over men with an active sex life, revealing how jealous and irrational he was. He decided to target the Alpha Phi sorority house at the University of California, intending to kill each and every woman inside. Though he was unable to enter the building, he managed to shoot 3 women standing nearby. 2 of these women later died of their wounds. Elliot then began to drive around looking for more victims. He eventually shot 8 more people, 1 of whom died, and crashed into several more with his car. 17 minutes after uploading his final video, and after unleashing all of his violent frustration on the world, Elliot turned it on himself. In the aftermath of his violence, a memorial service for his victims was held at the university's Harder Stadium. However, in the online incel community, Elliot was hailed as a hero, with some even calling him a saint. Number 3. 2 terrifying months in a shipping container. On August 31st, 2016, 30-year-old Carla Brown and her boyfriend, 32-year-old Charles Carver, were abducted by a serial killer. 45-year-old Todd Colhep had secretly killed at least 6 people since 2003, and when the couple arrived at his home for a landscaping job, he knew he had found his next targets. He suddenly attacked, killing Charlie right in front of Carla before tossing her into a shipping container and chaining her up. Carla was trapped in that storage container for 2 months, during which she was repeatedly assaulted. If she even mentioned escaping, her captor would show her the graves of his former victims, including that of her boyfriend. After enduring relentless torment, Carla was finally freed on November 3rd when police arrived. The couple's disappearance had sparked a massive social media campaign, and authorities eventually made the connection when they learned about the landscaping job. The raid on Todd's home also revealed plenty of evidence that he was a serial killer, including the graves. The culprit was immediately arrested, and he confessed to all of his crimes in exchange for a picture of his mother. Authorities later learned that he had left reviews on Amazon, subtly alluding to his crimes while praising the tools he had used. On May 26, 2017, Todd accepted a plea bargain that saved him from the electric chair, but with 7 counts of homicide and countless other violent crimes, he was sentenced to 7 consecutive life terms without parole. Number 2. Brutal death by road rage. On June 18, 2017, 22-year-old Darwin Martinez Torres kidnapped and assaulted Muslim teenager Nabra Hassanin before beating her to death with a baseball bat. The attack occurred during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, and the victim, who was just 17 years old, was hanging out with a large group of friends near Adams Center Mosque in Sterling, Virginia. Between 3 and 4 in the morning, the group headed to a nearby McDonald's, where they encountered Torres driving a red car. An argument ensued, and Torres became increasingly hostile. When he tried to run them over, the frightened teenagers fled. However, the soon-to-be killer exited his car to chase them on foot. Torres eventually caught up to Nabra, and he dragged her back to his car after incapacitating her with his bat. At 3 p.m. the same day, her battered corpse was found floating in a nearby pond. While nobody knows the precise details of her ordeal, evidence suggests that she was assaulted multiple times before the assailant took her life, after which he threw her body into the pond. Some in the Muslim community allege that this was an act of Islamophobic violence. However, the police refuted these claims, stating it was just an incident of road rage that went too far. The perpetrator, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador, had allegedly attacked another woman just a few days prior. Shortly after Nabra's body was discovered, police located Torres in a suspicious-looking vehicle, and he was immediately arrested. He was charged with 8 counts of criminal homicide, and his trial began on October 16, 2017. Given the nature of his crimes, prosecutors pushed for the death penalty, but the killer accepted a plea deal to save his own life. On March 28, 2019, Torres was sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences behind bars. Number 1. The Fatal Family Feud. On April 21, 2016, 8 members of the Roden family were brutally shot and killed in their homes. The incident occurred in Pike County, around 50 miles outside of Columbus, Ohio. The victims included 40-year-old Christopher Roden Sr., his brother, 44-year-old Kenneth Roden, his cousin, 38-year-old Gary Roden, along with his ex-wife, Dana Lynn Roden, who was 37. Additionally, all of Christopher and Dana's children were killed as well, including 20-year-old Clarence, 20-year-old fiancée Hannah Hazel Gilly, 19-year-old Hannah May, and 16-year-old Christopher Jr. These 8 victims were living in 4 separate homes at the time, and the killers entered each one to make sure they were wiped out. According to autopsy reports, each victim was riddled with bullets, indicating that the killers had a vendetta against them. The presence of bruising also suggests that some of the victims were tortured before they lost their lives. After years of investigating, police finally apprehended 4 members of the Wagner family in connection to the crimes. As it turns out, the culprits were former residents of Pike County and were immediately associated with their victims. George Wagner III and his wife Angela, both 46 years old, as well as their children, 25-year-old George Wagner IV and 24-year-old Edward, were taken into custody. Notably, Edward had been in a relationship with one of the victims, Hannah May, when she was still a minor, and they even had a daughter together. The Wagners and Rodens had been friends for years, but a custody battle between Edward and Hannah May started a feud that led to the senseless violence. On April 21st, 2021, exactly 5 years after the Rodens were systematically slaughtered, Edward Wagner pleaded guilty to all 8 murders and was given a life sentence for each one. His mother Angela was sentenced to 30 years for conspiracy, aggravated burglary, and other charges on September 10th. 2 days later, George Wagner IV was also sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences after a jury found him guilty on all counts of aggravated homicide. Which of these twisted crimes disturbed you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.